What happens when a beloved late-night host faces off against Hollywood royalty who refuses to play by the rules? In just 32 seconds, a single comment would shatter the careful balance of civility and send shockwaves through the studio audience. This is the story of the moment everything fell apart on live television. The studio lights were blazing hot that evening as Bill Maher settled into his chair across from one of the most talked about women in the world. Meghan Markle had arrived with an entourage that seemed to fill half the green room, and from the moment she walked onto the set, there was an energy in the air that felt different. The audience applauded as she took her seat, flashing that practiced smile she had perfected over years in the spotlight. Bill leaned forward with his characteristic grin, ready to dive into what he thought would be a lively but respectful conversation. So Meghan, thanks for being here. I have to say, you've been in the news quite a bit lately. She crossed her legs and tilted her head slightly. Well, Bill, when you live your life authentically, people tend to have opinions about it. The audience gave a light chuckle, and Bill nodded. Sure. But I want to talk about some of the things you've said publicly. You've made some pretty strong claims about the media, about your treatment, about a lot of things, really. Meghan's smile tightened just a fraction. I've spoken my truth, yes. Your truth, Bill repeated, letting the phrase hang in the air for a moment. See, that's interesting to me because truth is kind of, just truth. It's not really a personal thing. Either something happened or it didn't. The studio got quiet. You could feel the temperature change. Meghan uncrossed her legs and sat up straighter. I think that's a very narrow way of looking at lived experience, Bill. My truth is about how I experienced events, how they made me feel, how they impacted my mental health. Bill raised his hands in a calming gesture. Okay. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings. But when you make claims about other people, about institutions, don't they get to have their truth too? Doesn't there have to be some objective reality we can all agree on? Are you seriously questioning what I went through? Meghan's voice had an edge now, sharp enough that several audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I'm asking questions, which is kind of my job, Bill replied evenly. You came on a talk show. We talk. That's how this works. Meghan laughed, but it wasn't a warm sound. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the kind of dismissive attitude I've faced from the beginning. You invite me here and then try to pick apart my experiences like they're up for debate. Bill leaned back in his chair, keeping his tone measured. I invited you here to have a conversation, a real one, not just a platform for talking points. If you say something publicly, people are going to ask questions about it. That's not persecution. That's just how public discourse works. Public discourse, Meghan repeated mockingly. Is that what you call it when a woman, particularly a woman of color, is subjected to relentless scrutiny and has her every word twisted? The audience was dead silent now. Bill's expression remained calm, but you could see him choosing his next words carefully. Meghan, nobody here is attacking you for being a woman or for your race, but you've made very serious allegations about people and institutions. When you do that, you have to expect that people will examine those claims. That's not racism or sexism. That's accountability. Accountability? Meghan's voice rose. You want to talk to me about accountability? Where's the accountability for the press that hounded me? Where's the accountability for the institution that failed to protect me? Bill nodded slowly. Those are fair questions, but they don't mean your own statements are beyond question. You've done interviews, you've made claims, and some of those claims have been disputed by people who were actually there. Don't they deserve to be heard too? Meghan stood up suddenly, and the movement was so abrupt that it startled the cameramen. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated like I'm on trial. Nobody's interrogating you, Bill said, still seated, still calm. I'm having a conversation. If you can't handle someone respectfully disagreeing with you or asking follow-up questions, then maybe doing interviews isn't the best idea. Maybe having a show isn't the best idea for someone who clearly has no empathy or understanding of what it's like to be marginalized, Meghan shot back. Bill's eyebrows went up. Oh, so now I can't understand struggle because of who I am. That's a pretty broad brush you're painting with. You sit here in your comfortable studio, in your position of power, and you think you can judge my experiences? You think you can tell me what is and isn't valid about my own life? The host remained seated, his voice steady. I'm not telling you anything. I'm asking you to support your claims with something more than just feelings. You're a public figure who has made public statements. That means public scrutiny. I know you don't like it, but that's reality. Reality, Meghan laughed again, that same brittle sound. You don't know anything about my reality. Then explain it to me, Bill offered, gesturing to her empty chair. Sit down. Walk me through it. Help me understand. That's what we're here for. But Meghan wasn't having it. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't owe anyone an explanation. I've already told my story, and if people don't want to believe it, that says more about them than it does about me. Bill finally stood up, matching her energy, but not her anger. Meghan, you can't have it both ways. You can't demand that everyone listen to your story and then get upset when they ask questions about it. That's not how this works. Don't tell me how this works, she snapped. Don't you dare sit there and lecture me about how things work. You have no idea what I've been through. You're right. I don't, Bill agreed. But I can't know if you won't explain it in a way that makes sense. And I can't just accept everything you say at face value because you want me to. Nobody gets that treatment. Not you. Not me. Not anyone. The audience was watching this unfold like a car crash in slow motion. You could see some people nodding in agreement with Bill, others looking uncomfortable, a few seeming genuinely shocked at how quickly things had deteriorated. Meghan pointed a finger at Bill. This is exactly the problem with people like you. You hide behind this mask of reasonableness, but really, you're just another person trying to tear down a woman who dared to speak up. People like me, Bill repeated. And what kind of person is that exactly? The kind who pretends to be open-minded, but really just wants to maintain the status quo. The kind who benefits from the system and doesn't want anyone rocking the boat. Bill's patience was clearly wearing thin, though his voice remained controlled. Meghan, you married into one of the most privileged families on the planet. You've lived a life of extraordinary wealth and access. You're not exactly leading a revolution here. You're a multimillionaire who's upset that not everyone treats you like royalty. That did it. Meghan's face flushed red. How dare you? How dare you minimize what I've been through? You don't know anything about the pain I've experienced, the struggles, the darkness I had to fight through. I'm sure it was difficult, Bill said, but difficult doesn't mean you're above criticism. Difficult doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want without anyone questioning it. I came here thinking I could have an intelligent conversation, Meghan said, her voice shaking slightly now, but clearly that was a mistake. An intelligent conversation requires two people willing to engage honestly, Bill countered. Not one person demanding everyone accept their version of events without question. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. I'm done here. You don't have to leave, Bill said, though there was no pleading in his tone. You can sit back down. We can talk like adults. We can work through this. Work through this? Meghan's laugh was almost hysterical now. There's nothing to work through. You've already made up your mind about me. Everyone always does. Bill spread his hands. I haven't made up my mind about anything, but you're not making a great case for yourself right now. Running away when someone asks tough questions kind of proves my point. Your point, Meghan spat. Your point is that I should just shut up and take whatever treatment comes my way. That I should smile and nod and not dare to challenge the narrative. My point, Bill said firmly, is that you should be able to defend your positions when challenged. That's all. If what you're saying is true, it should be able to withstand scrutiny. Meghan turned to face him fully, and her voice dropped to something cold and sharp. You know what your problem is, Bill? You're a relic. You're part of an old guard that's dying out, and you can't stand that people like me don't need your approval anymore. Bill actually smiled at that. People like you have always existed, Meghan. Famous people who think being famous means they're right about everything. The only thing that's changed is the platform. But the entitlement? That's timeless. The audience gasped. It was a direct hit, and everyone in the room knew it. Meghan's hands were shaking now. I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to stand here and be insulted by some washed-up comedian who thinks he's relevant. There it is, Bill said quietly. When you can't win the argument, attack the person. Classic. You're not worth my time, Meghan declared, turning toward the exit. Apparently, I was worth your time when you agreed to come on the show, Bill called after her. Funny how that changes when things don't go your way. Meghan whirled back around. You know what? You're lucky I even agreed to this interview. Do you know how many shows would kill to have me on? How many people want to hear what I have to say? Bill nodded slowly. I'm sure they do. But wanting to hear you and believing everything you say are two different things. Maybe that's the lesson here. The only lesson here, Meghan said, her voice rising again, is that the media will never treat me fairly. Never. And you've just proven that on live television. I've treated you exactly how I treat every guest, Bill responded, with respect and with questions. If you can't handle questions, that's on you, not me. Meghan's face was flushed, her composure completely shattered. I've been nothing but honest and open, and this is what I get. This is always what I get. You've been defensive and evasive, Bill corrected. Every time I ask you to clarify something or provide context, you act like I'm attacking you. That's not honest. That's manipulation. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Meghan's mouth opened and closed, searching for a response. Manipulation, she finally whispered. You just called me a manipulator on your show. Bill didn't back down. I called your behavior manipulative. There's a difference. And yeah, when someone plays the victim every time they're asked a legitimate question, that's manipulative. I am a victim, Meghan insisted. I've been victimized by the press, by trolls, by people who refuse to see me as human. Being criticized isn't the same as being victimized, Bill said. Millions of people deal with criticism every day. They don't all get to claim victimhood and expect everyone to stop asking questions. Meghan looked around the studio, at the cameras, at our crew, at the silent audience. This is unbelievable. This is absolutely unbelievable. What's unbelievable is that you thought you could come on here and just have everyone nod along without engaging with anything you said, Bill replied. I thought I could come on here and be treated with basic respect, Meghan countered. You have been, Bill said simply. You just don't like that respect doesn't mean agreement. Meghan pulled her phone from her purse. My publicist is going to hear about this. Your producers are going to hear about this. Everyone is going to know how I was treated here tonight. Bill shrugged. They're watching it happen live, Meghan. They can make up their own minds. They'll see exactly what I see, Meghan said. A bitter man taking out his frustrations on someone who actually stands for something. And what do you stand for exactly? Bill asked. Besides yourself? The question landed like a punch. Meghan's eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed genuinely speechless. That's what I thought, Bill said quietly. Meghan's voice came out strangled. You are the most condescending, arrogant, self-righteous person I have ever had the misfortune of speaking with. I'll take that as a compliment coming from someone who just spent 20 minutes telling me how special and misunderstood you are, Bill shot back. This interview is over, Meghan announced. It was over 10 minutes ago, Bill replied. You just didn't want to admit it. Meghan looked at the nearest camera. To anyone watching this, I want you to know that this is exactly what I've been talking about. This is the kind of treatment I face constantly. This dismissiveness, this cruelty, this complete lack of empathy. Bill addressed the same camera. And to anyone watching this, I want you to know that asking questions isn't cruelty. Expecting people to back up their claims isn't dismissive. And not automatically believing someone just because they're famous isn't a lack of empathy. Meghan turned back to him one last time. You're going to regret this. Bill met her gaze steadily. I doubt it. Your ratings are going to tank, Meghan predicted. Your reputation is going to suffer. People are going to see you for what you really are. Which is what? Bill asked calmly. A bully, Meghan said. A small-minded bully who can't stand that the world is changing without you. Bill actually laughed at that. Meghan, I've been called worse by better people. If you think calling me names is going to bother me, you really haven't done your research. I don't need to do research on you, Meghan said coldly. You're exactly what I expected. Funny, Bill said. You're exactly what I expected too. The audience stirred at that. Some uncomfortable laughs rippling through the crowd. Meghan's jaw clenched. I hope you're happy with yourself. I'm fine, Bill said. Are you? It was such a simple question, but it seemed to hit something deep. Meghan's expression flickered, showing something vulnerable for just a second before the mask came back up. I'm leaving, she declared. Safe travels, Bill offered. Meghan started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. The audience watched in stunned silence as she made her way through the set. But she couldn't resist one final shot. She stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back. You know what the sad thing is, Bill? You could have been part of the solution. Instead, you chose to be part of the problem. Bill remained in his spot, hands in his pockets. The sad thing, Meghan, is that you think everyone who doesn't agree with you is the problem. That's not how growth works. That's not how learning works. That's just ego. My ego, Meghan laughed bitterly. That's rich coming from you. At least I can admit I have one, Bill said. Can you? Meghan didn't answer. She just shook her head, turned on her heel, and walked off the set. The studio remained quiet for a long moment after she disappeared. Bill stood there, looking at the empty chair across from him, then at the cameras, then at the audience. Well, he said finally, a small smile playing at his lips. That was fun. A few nervous laughs broke out from the audience, then a few more, and then suddenly the whole studio was applauding. Not everyone, but enough that it was clear where most of their sympathies lay. Bill raised a hand to quiet them down. Look, I don't take any pleasure in that. I really don't. I invited her here hoping we could have a real conversation. But you can't have a conversation with someone who only wants validation. The audience murmured in agreement. The thing is, Bill continued, walking back to his desk, we live in this weird time where people think their feelings are facts, where having a platform means you're automatically right about everything, where asking questions is treated like an attack. He sat down, looking directly into the camera. But that's not how truth works. That's not how understanding works. You don't get to just declare your version of reality and expect everyone to accept it without question. That's not strength. That's fragility. The audience applauded again, louder this time. Bill leaned forward, his expression serious now. And before anyone tries to make this about something, it's not. This has nothing to do with who she is or where she comes from. This is about behavior. This is about someone who can dish it out but can't take it. Someone who wants all the benefits of being a public figure without any of the responsibilities. More applause. The energy in the room had completely shifted from the uncomfortable tension of minutes before. Look, Bill said, I hope she's okay. I really do. But being okay doesn't mean you're right. and being questioned doesn't mean you're being persecuted. He shuffled some papers on his desk, signaling a transition. When we come back, we're going to talk about something a little less dramatic. Maybe. We'll see. The cameras cut to commercial, but in the studio, the audience was buzzing with conversation. What they had just witnessed was already becoming the talk of social media, clips spreading across every platform within minutes. Bill sat at his desk during the break, shaking his head slightly, but not looking upset. If anything, he looked vindicated. He had done exactly what he always did, asked honest questions, and refused to back down when someone didn't like it. The fact that it had gone so badly wasn't his fault. He had given her every opportunity to engage, to explain, to have that real conversation he had mentioned. She just hadn't been able to do it. One of the producers approached him during the break. That was intense. Bill nodded. Yeah, but necessary. Do you think she'll come after you for this? Bill smiled. Probably. But what's she going to say? That I asked her questions? That I didn't just accept everything she said without thinking? Good luck making that sound bad. The producer laughed nervously. I guess we'll see. We will indeed, Bill agreed. As the crew prepared for the next segment, stagehands were already removing the empty chair where Meghan had sat. It was like erasing evidence of something that had just happened, though of course the footage would live forever. Bill took a sip of water and straightened his notes. Another day at the office, really. Another guest who couldn't handle the format. It happened more often than people realized. The only difference this time was how spectacularly it had fallen apart. The floor manager counted down from 10, and Bill's face shifted back into his on-air persona. Relaxed, confident, ready to move on to the next topic as if the last 20 minutes had been completely normal. Because for him, in a way, they had been. This was what he did. This was what his show was about. Real talk, real questions, real pushback when necessary. If guests couldn't handle that, they shouldn't accept the invitation. It was really that simple. The cameras came back on, and Bill launched into his next segment without missing a beat. Professional, polished, completely unbothered by what had just transpired. But backstage, Meghan's team was in full crisis mode. Phones were ringing, texts were flying, strategies were being formed. The question wasn't whether to respond, it was how. How to spin this, how to control the narrative, how to make sure people remembered her version of events instead of what had actually happened on camera. It was going to be a long night for everyone involved. Back in the studio, Bill continued his show, the audience fully engaged now, energized by the drama they had witnessed. This was live television at its most raw, most unpredictable, most real. And Bill Maher, veteran of countless interviews and controversies, handled it exactly as he always did. With confidence, with clarity, and with an unwavering commitment to asking the questions everyone was thinking, but few dared to voice. The show went on,